My name is Tamara, and I am 29 years old. He said it over breakfast like it was nothing, like he was commenting on the weather or asking if I wanted more coffee. My family still loves you, he said, stirring his mug slowly, but bringing you to the wedding would be awkward. I looked up from my plate, fork halfway to my mouth, trying to understand how a single word could suddenly carry so much weight. Awkward, he repeated, shoulders lifting in a casual shrug, eyes fixed on his coffee instead of me. Some relatives are dealing with things. Extra people would complicate the vibe. The wedding was his cousin's. The invitation had come 2 months earlier, addressed to both of us. We'd talked about outfits, about whether I'd wear the black dress or the navy one, about hotel rooms and how long we'd stay. Now, 4 days before the event, I was being quietly uninvited. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded and said, "Understood." I set my fork down carefully, like if I moved too fast, something might spill. His shoulders relaxed instantly. Relief washed over his face, and that hurt more than the words themselves. "Thanks for understanding," he said. "I knew you would. I did understand, just not in the way he thought." We'd been together for 3 years, lived together for a year and a half, built a life that, from the outside, looked solid. His family treated me like I was already permanent. His father called me daughter by month 6. His mother texted me during the week to ask how work was going. His younger brother asked me for advice about jobs and money. I wasn't just his girlfriend, I was part of the family. That's why the timing didn't make sense. The wedding was Saturday. On Monday night, his father had texted me, asking how my latest project was going. His mother invited me to a birthday dinner next month. His brother sent me a meme Sunday afternoon with the caption, "This is so us." Nothing about awkward fit into that picture. I went to work that day like everything was normal. I answered emails, sat through meetings, smiled when people spoke to me. But the word followed me. Awkward. It echoed in my head over and over until it stopped sounding harmless and started sounding like a warning. That evening, his mother called. We talked about work, about stress, about nothing important. Before we hung up, I mentioned casually that I was sorry I'd missed the wedding. There was a pause on the line, long enough to feel. "Miss it," she said, genuinely confused. "We were excited to see you. Why would you miss it?" I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice light. I thought maybe I'd have a work thing come up. Another pause. She hadn't heard that. She asked if everything was okay. I told her it probably would be fine, and we said goodnight. When the call ended, I stood in the kitchen staring at the wall. The truth settled in slowly, heavy and undeniable. His family didn't know. I hadn't been excluded because of them. I'd been removed because of him. That night, while he slept beside me, I lay awake, thinking about leases, about shared accounts, about how much of my life was tied to someone who could erase me with a single word over breakfast. By morning, I wasn't angry yet. I was planning. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't wake him up or demand explanations. I lay there listening to his breathing, steady and unbothered, and let the realization sink in. He had uninvited me quietly, then let his family believe a completely different story. That meant the exclusion wasn't accidental, it was intentional, planned. And whatever the reason was, it wasn't something he wanted to admit out loud. The next morning he acted normal. Too normal. He asked if I'd slept well, told me his cousin was excited about the wedding, mentioned traffic might be bad on Saturday because of construction near the venue. Not once did he ask how I felt about not going. Not once did he check in. It was like I'd already been erased from the event in his mind, filed away as a solved problem. That's when I started paying attention to things I'd brushed off before. How he angled his phone away when messages came in. How he suddenly had plans with friends more often, plans that never came with names or details. How family dinners that used to happen every couple of weeks had quietly stretched to every month, then every 6 weeks. I told myself relationships ebb and flow, that people need space. But standing in that kitchen, watching him scroll through his phone while I poured coffee, I felt the distance clearly for the first time. Later that afternoon, while he was at work, his mother texted me a photo of a centerpiece she'd made for the wedding, blue and white flowers. "Can't wait to see you Saturday," she wrote, followed by a heart emoji. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a lie that was still actively being told. I didn't reply. I set my phone down and walked through the apartment slowly, like I was seeing it for the first time. The couch I'd bought when we moved in. The desk I paid for, because he said he'd reimburse me later. the lease binder tucked into the drawer by the entryway. I pulled it out and flipped through it, heart pounding now, not with fear, but with focus. The lease was in my name. Month to month since November, after our initial year ended. 30 days notice, that was it. I opened my banking app next. Rent, utilities, internet, groceries, month after month. His contributions were occasional, inconsistent, and always labeled my half, even though the numbers never added up. Last month, he'd sent me $200 with a heart emoji. Rent alone was $18.50. I'd laughed it off at the time, told myself it would balance out eventually. Couples who have nothing to hide don't need locked phones, he'd said early on, smiling like it was a philosophy instead of a red flag. We shared passwords, trusted each other. That trust felt naive now. Wednesday morning, after he left for work, I opened his laptop. I didn't rush. I didn't feel guilty. The messaging app was already open. A thread at the top caught my eye. A woman's name I didn't recognize. The messages were recent. Too recent. I read them once, then again. Can't wait for Saturday. Finally get to see you without sneaking around. I told her she's not coming. We can actually be public now. Your family's going to love me. They already do. They just don't know it yet. I closed the laptop and sat there in the quiet apartment, my hands resting in my lap. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. The confusion evaporated, replaced by something colder and much more useful. Clarity. By that afternoon, I knew exactly what I was going to do. By Thursday, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was executing. I went to work, smiled at the right people, answered emails, and kept my voice steady on calls. On my lunch break, I stepped outside and called the leasing office, gave my 30-day notice. The woman on the phone confirmed the lease was month to month under my name only and told me I could drop the keys any time. I paid the final month's rent right then. Asked for an email confirmation. When it came through, I forwarded it to myself and archived it. Clean, quiet. Next were the utilities: electric, water, internet. I scheduled termination for all of them for Saturday at 5. When the woman at the electric company asked if I wanted to transfer service to a new address, I said no, I'd handle it later. She confirmed the shutoff. I removed him from my phone plan. He'd been on my family plan for a year, saving him $70 a month. The carrier told me his line would stop working at midnight Saturday. I thanked her and hung up. I rented a moving truck for Saturday, noon to 6, pickup 2 miles away. I texted my friend Marcus and asked if I could crash on his couch for a bit. He said yes without questions. That was enough. I packed in silence while he was at work. Essentials first. Documents, laptop, hard drives, clothes, the things that were mine. I worked in stages, pulling from the back of closets and bottom drawers, places he wouldn't notice right away. The apartment still looked full. Lived in. Familiar. Friday evening, he came home glowing, showed me photos of his suit, asked if I thought his family would like his hair styled or natural. I told him natural looked good. He kissed my cheek, asked what I was doing this weekend. I said I'd probably catch up on work and watch the game with Marcus. He didn't ask anything else, didn't ask how I felt, didn't wonder why I wasn't asking about the wedding anymore. He'd gotten what he wanted. I was handled. That night, while he slept, I took photos of the apartment, documented everything. The condition of the walls, the floors, the furniture. I printed the lease termination notice and the utility shutoff confirmations, stacked them neatly. Saturday morning, he woke up early, showered, got dressed, humming to himself. At 9:47, he walked out in his suit, shoes polished, confidence intact. He kissed my cheek and said, "Wish me luck." I watched his car disappear down the street. At 10:03, I called the moving truck company and told them I was ready. At 11:02, the truck pulled into the parking lot. 2 movers, efficient, quiet. We started with the bedroom, dresser, bed frame, nightstands, then the living room, couch, TV stand, bookshelf. Everything I brought in or paid for went into the truck. I checked my phone. His first wedding photo went up. Smiling faces, champagne glasses. I kept packing. More photos appeared as the afternoon went on. Ceremony, reception, dancing. In one clip, he laughed with a woman in a gray dress, her hand on his arm. I didn't pause. I didn't zoom in. I taped boxes shut and moved on. At 3:50, the movers finished. The truck pulled away. I placed the keys on the kitchen counter next to the documents. Lease termination dated Wednesday. Utility shut-off confirmations for 5 o'clock. Printed photos of the apartment condition. I locked the door from the outside, slid my copy of the key back under it, and walked away. At 4:17, I pulled into Marcus's place. He helped me unload the essentials. My phone stayed silent. At 6:22, another wedding photo appeared. Sunset, drinks, best day with my favorite people. At 6:30, my phone rang. His father, confused, warm. Why didn't you come today? I told him the truth. I wasn't invited. There was a pause long enough to feel the weight of it. He said they'd asked about me all day. He asked where I was. I said I'd moved out. Utilities shut off at 5. She should be noticing. The line went quiet. Then he said he needed to talk to his wife. The call ended. I didn't respond to the messages that followed. I listened to the voicemails later. Confusion, panic, anger, then pleading. I didn't answer. At 10:14, he posted a black screen with white text about being blindsided by someone he trusted. His cousin commented asking why he lied about me not being invited. The post disappeared minutes later. At 11:26, he showed up at Marcus's building. The intercom buzzed. Marcus answered. He asked to see me. Marcus said no. He stood in the parking lot for 10 minutes, staring up at the building, then left. By Sunday morning, the truth had spread through his family. Screenshots, questions, silence where excuses used to be. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. The fog that had hung over the last year lifted, and I could finally see what had been happening without guessing. Sometimes leaving doesn't need a speech. Sometimes it just needs timing, paperwork, and the courage to go when the door opens. Sunday came quietly. Too quietly. My phone sat face down on Marcus's coffee table while I drank burnt coffee and watched the city wake up through his window. I didn't feel dramatic. I didn't feel shattered. I felt empty in a clean way, like a room after everything unnecessary has been cleared out. Around 9, his mother called again. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Her voice was tight, controlled, the kind of calm people use when they're holding something together with both hands. She asked if it was true, if I hadn't been invited, if I'd really moved out without telling him. I told her yes to all of it, evenly, without adding details. She apologized, said she had no idea he'd told them I had a work emergency, said they'd been asking about me all day and he kept deflecting. I told her it wasn't her fault, that I appreciated how kind they'd always been to me. She cried before hanging up. By noon, his brother texted, "What the hell happened?" I sent him a screenshot from Tuesday. The word awkward circled like evidence. His reply came fast. Holy hell, she lied to everyone. A few minutes later, another screenshot. The family group chat. Aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, all asking where I really was and why they'd been told different stories. His name showed the typing indicator for a long time. 3 dots blinking. No message ever appeared. The missed calls stacked up through the afternoon. 16 from him. 1 from his mother again. 2 from unknown numbers I didn't answer. The voicemails told a story all on their own. The first was confusion. Where are you? The lights aren't working. Then panic. The apartment is empty. What's going on? Then anger. You can't just leave like this. Then desperation. Please call me. We need to talk. This isn't how you handle things. The last one was barely audible through crying. I'm sorry. I don't understand what I did. Please. At 10:14 that night, he posted another story. A black screen, white text, something about being blindsided by someone he trusted. His cousin commented almost immediately, asking why he lied about me not being invited. An aunt chimed in, saying they'd been asking about me all day. The post was deleted within minutes. By Monday morning, the narrative had shifted without me saying a word. His father texted once. Short, gentle. I'm sorry you were treated that way. We didn't know. Take care of yourself. That was all. It was enough. I went to work that day like a person who had crossed something irreversible. People asked if I was okay. I said yes and meant it in a way I hadn't before. Around lunchtime, Marcus told me he'd seen my ex parked down the street earlier, just sitting there. He didn't come up, didn't knock, just sat, waiting. I didn't look. Silence did what confrontation never could. It let the truth land where it needed to, without me being there to soften it. And as the day ended, I realized something that surprised me. I didn't miss him. I missed who I thought he was. And that version had been gone long before breakfast on Tuesday. The weeks that followed didn't feel dramatic. They felt instructional, like life was showing me, piece by piece, what happens when you stop protecting someone from the consequences of their own choices. I heard things through his brother, not because I asked, but because people talk when a story finally makes sense. He tried staying with his parents for a few days. That didn't last. Every conversation ended the same way, him insisting he'd been trying to protect me from complicated family dynamics. His mother asking why protecting me required lying to everyone. By day 4, even his father stopped engaging. Silence, I learned, runs in families when accountability shows up. Someone mentioned the woman from the wedding, the one he'd danced with. Turns out she was dating the bride's cousin. Friendly, nothing more. The story he'd built in his head collapsed on contact with reality. He tried reaching out to her anyway. She didn't respond. That one stung, apparently. Not because he loved her, but because the fantasy failed him too. Housing became a problem. The apartment he'd relied on was gone. Utilities cut. His credit still shaky from before we met. He asked his parents to co-sign for a studio 40 minutes from his job. They said no. I didn't celebrate that. I noted it. There's a difference. Consequences don't need cheering. They just need space to do their work. Thanksgiving plans surfaced in the family group chat I was never removed from. His brother asked me directly if I was coming. I hesitated, then answered honestly. If I'm invited by your family, I'll come. 2 days later, his father called and invited me formally. Then, carefully, he added that my ex wouldn't be there. He needed time, they said, to sort things out. I said I understood. 3 weeks after the wedding, I sat at their table again. The chair where he usually sat stayed empty. No one mentioned it. His mother hugged me longer than usual. His father raised a glass and said simply, "To the people who show up." A few eyes met mine. I nodded and drank. It wasn't victory. It was alignment. I started dating again, slowly. I met a man through Marcus, a friend from his work. On the second date, I told him the whole story. He listened without interrupting, then said, "That was admirably calm." I laughed, surprised by the relief of being seen without having to perform. In early December, my ex texted one last time, an apology, vague, fear-driven. He said he missed what we had. I stared at the message longer than I expected to. Then I typed back, "I appreciate the apology. I hope you figure things out. Take care." And I blocked his number. In January, I ran into his mother at a coffee shop. She waved me over, hugged me, told me he'd taken a job 2 hours away. Fresh start, she said. Doing better. I told her I was glad. I meant it. She squeezed my hand and said I was always welcome for Sunday dinners. I thanked her and said I'd come by sometime. When I think back on it now, I always return to that Tuesday breakfast. The way he said awkward, like it was small, like it excused everything. I learned something important from that moment. When someone reduces years of commitment to a word like that, believe them the first time. And when it's time to go, you don't need a scene. You just need to go. The weeks after everything collapsed didn't feel explosive. They felt instructional, like life was calmly laying evidence on the table and asking me to look at it without flinching. I didn't chase updates or ask mutual friends for details, but information has a way of finding you when the truth finally lines up. His brother checked in once, not with gossip, but with guilt. He said he kept replaying moments he'd brushed off, the way his brother talked over me sometimes, the way decisions were made without me in the room. I told him it wasn't his fault, and I meant it. Accountability belongs where it lands. My ex stayed with his parents at first. That lasted 4 days. Every conversation ended the same way, him insisting he'd been trying to protect me from family complications, his mother asking why protection required lying to everyone she loved. His father stopped engaging by day 3, not angrily, just quietly. The same silence that once shielded him now made it impossible to hide. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that, just recognition. Patterns don't disappear when exposed. They just lose cover. Someone mentioned the woman from the wedding, the one he'd danced with in the reception photos. Turns out she was dating the bride's cousin. Friendly, nothing secret, nothing waiting in the wings. The fantasy he'd been leaning on collapsed the moment it touched reality. He reached out to her anyway. She didn't respond. I didn't smile when I heard that. I noted it the way you note weather changing. Facts, no commentary. Housing became a problem. The apartment had always been the anchor, even though the lease and utilities were in my name. Without it, everything unraveled fast. His credit was still shaky from before we met. Worse now that the financial cushion disappeared. He asked his parents to co-sign for a small studio 40 minutes from his job. They said no, not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I didn't cheer that decision. Consequences don't need applause. They just need space. Thanksgiving came faster than I expected. His family group chat, the one I'd never been removed from, lit up with planning messages. His brother messaged me directly and asked if I was coming. I paused before answering, aware of how different this felt now. If I'm invited by your family, I'll come. 2 days later, his father called. Formal, gentle. He invited me personally, then added, carefully, that his son wouldn't be there. He needed time, they said, to sort things out. I told him I understood. 3 weeks after their wedding, I sat at their table again. The chair he usually occupied stayed empty, untouched. No one filled it. No one explained it. His mother hugged me longer than usual at the door, like she was grounding herself. His father raised a glass during dinner and said simply, "To the people who show up. No speech, no pointed looks, just truth." A few eyes met mine. I nodded and drank. It wasn't triumph. It was alignment. After dinner, his brother and I did the dishes. He admitted he'd assumed I was happy, that he'd never questioned the dynamic because it looked calm on the surface. I told him calm isn't the same as healthy. He nodded like that sentence landed somewhere permanent. When I left, his mother hugged me again and whispered thank you. Not for coming, for not making a mess of it. I started dating again slowly, without urgency. I met a man through Marcus, a friend from work. On our second date, I told him the whole story, not as a warning, just as context. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix anything. And when I finished, he said, "That was admirably calm." I laughed, surprised by how good it felt to be understood without being evaluated. In early December, my ex texted me one last time, an apology that felt more scared than reflective. He said he missed what we had. I stared at the message longer than I expected, not because I wanted to go back, but because I wanted to be honest with myself about what I was letting go. Then I typed, "I appreciate the apology. I hope you figure things out. Take care." And I blocked his number, not out of anger, out of completion. In January, I ran into his mother at a coffee shop. She waved me over, hugged me, told me he'd taken a job 2 hours away. "Fresh start," she said, "doing better." I told her I was glad. I meant it. She squeezed my hand and said I was always welcome at Sunday dinners. I thanked her and said I'd come by sometime. When I think about everything now, I always return to that Tuesday breakfast. The way he said awkward, like it erased 3 years with a word over toast and coffee. It taught me something I won't forget. When someone reduces your place in their life that easily, believe them. And when it's time to leave, you don't need a confrontation. You just need to go.